Muy buenos días.
Good morning. We apologize for starting late. We'd like to ask you to please take your seats. We're going to begin this session.
Buenos días.
Good morning. Today, we are meeting for the Summit Implementation Review Group, SURGE. It's the first ministerial meeting of 2025 here in St. John's in Antigua and Barbuda. I understand, according to the Secretariat, that we have a quorum. Good morning, honorable ministers and national coordinators, permanent representatives, Secretary General of the OAS, Assistant Secretary General, representatives of institutions of the Joint Summit Working Group, friends. A special thanks to the government of Antigua and Barbuda for this warm welcome and for hosting this first ministerial meeting of the Summit Implementation Review Group of this year. Thank you for your hospitality. We would like to bring this meeting to order. We are going to address the items that are included on our draft agenda, which is document Greek M1, Doc 72/25, and draft schedule Greek/M.1/Doc 73/25, which was duly distributed by the Summit's Secretariat. Allow me, first of all, on behalf of the Dominican Republic and recognizing Secretary General Ramdin, Assistant Secretary General Mendez, Minister Green, Maria Selena Conte and her team from the Summits Group. On behalf of the Dominican Republic, again, I'd like to recognize the government of Antigua and Barbuda for its hospitality, not just for this SURGE meeting, but also for hosting the 55th regular session of the General Assembly of the OAS. At the same time, I'd like to thank the Summit Secretariat for its technical support for this meeting. It is a pleasure to inform you that at the opening of this session, we have made available to all delegations, both in paper and virtually. I'd like to know if that's the case. Through the network of national coordinators, the first draft of the Declaration of Punta Cana. For the 10th Summit of the Americas, I invite states to send their remarks by July 18th. Your contributions will be extremely important so that the declaration reflects our common aspirations and helps us to build hemispheric consensus that can be translated into specific actions. And these will be the foundation to move forward to have a secure, sustainable, and prosperous hemisphere, which we all aspire to. By undertaking the responsibility to host the 10th summit on December 5, 2025 in Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic, we proposed an agenda focused on 4 dimensions of human security: citizen security, food security, energy security, and water security. These 4 pillars are an essential part of the main structural challenges that the hemisphere faces. Guarantees of security. This is an essential precondition to improve effectiveness of public action, the legitimacy of democracy, and consolidation of a social standard that allows us to move towards inclusive development with value added. I must say that it was very gratifying that we had a positive welcome of the conceptual note. Your considerations and comments are reflected in this new document. This confirms that the debate on security leads to coordinated action, and I thank each state for the technical quality and the political vision of their contributions, and this augurs fruitful debates for when we meet in Santo Domingo on 3rd and 4th September at the next surge meeting, which will kick off the negotiation process of the Declaration of Punta Cana. It is also important that we have citizen participation. In the last year, we have had 6 informative meetings and a regional meeting with civil society. These conclusions will nourish the hemispheric meeting of the civil society groups, which we will have as a parallel meeting of the summits. And during May 2025, we had more than 400 social actors that were signed up. And at the same time, we had the convocation of the participation to the workshop Summit Lab Methodology SMART for organizations, social actors, and those who are interested in the Dominican Republic. With respect to the 7th youth meeting or summit in the Americas, this is promoted by the Young Americas Business Trust and youth organizations in the hemisphere, with the aim of promoting young people's participation in innovation, public policy, recognizing their role as key actors for our future. Throughout the plan-in meetings, we have had agreements on important steps, and these are aligned with the pillars of the summit: water security, food security, citizen security, and energy security. Specifically, we will have a special approach with respect to food security in coordination with organizations like the FAO and ICA. Let us recall that the success of any hemispheric agenda demands the voice of the private sector. In that sense, I'd like to highlight the successful plenary meeting of the Business Dialogue of the Americas. This Business Dialogue of the Americas is a forum that was created by the Inter-American Development Bank in 2012 for the summit that took place in Cartagena in Colombia. The America's Business Dialogue seeks to promote a business environment that allows for greater investment, for innovation and productivity, so that we have more and better jobs, sustainable economic growth that is inclusive. This meeting in Santo Domingo in 28-29 May included representatives from 70 businesses together with Dominican businesses and business associations as well. At that meeting, we saw the progress made by the 9 thematic groups that make up the America's Business Dog: digital economies, energy and natural resources, finance, food, agribusiness, transparency, regulatory issues, health, facilitation of business, human capital, innovation, infrastructure, and logistics. Those are the 9 groups that made up the ABD until May. But the Dominican Republic's government has proposed that we have a 10th working group with respect to tourism. The Dominican Republic believes that the CEO Forum could be a central group in our summit. Why is this so? Because for some time, and we've seen this in the Ibero-American summits, one of which took place in the DR and the other in Ecuador, the private sector would like to go faster than governments. The governments in the Americas, we are ready to move faster with them. But I don't think it's a secret that political differences which currently exist in the hemisphere have not created the most positive environment, allowing the private sector to be as creative as possible, and that would allow for better and more jobs in our hemisphere.
To create an environment in which both entrepreneurs, the business sector, may jointly take and carry out a more dynamic environment that is more likely to improve the public-private cooperation and alliances that would unleash better efforts at development in our hemisphere. This is the moment also to reiterate that our hemisphere is a zone of peace, as has been proclaimed. We have reasons to do so, despite our high levels of insecurity and inequality. In 2024, we saw a greater support for democracy, according to Latino Barometer. 52% of the region supports today democracy as a form of government, after having had this same index be below 50% for a number of years. This is a favorable return. Similarly, in the Americas, we have incomparable strategic advantages. We export a quarter of the food consumed by our planet, and we have within our territory 40% of the world's fresh water, 2/3 of the world's lithium reserves, and 40% of copper, essential for the green transition. And at the same time, our region has 1/3 of the global oil production. The 10th Summit of the Americas must translate these strengths into consensus that allows for the coordination of political will, private investment, and social participation in a new development agenda for the hemisphere. The road to Punta Cana is full of emotion because of the incomparable beauty of our beaches. But for us, what is most exciting is the opportunity to agree on an agenda that will allow us to guarantee security and to underscore our conviction that prosperity must be shared or will not be sustainable. The 10th Summit will be the opportunity for the Americas to reaffirm that the security of its people is the cornerstone of our development. Thank you. Thank you very much. Continuing then with the agenda of our meeting, and I should have asked, my mistake, if there were any comments regarding the theme or the agenda of our meeting today. Hearing none, I deem it to be approved. And we continue then with the next item, which are the remarks by the Secretary General of the organization, Secretary General Ramdeen. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Minister Alvarez, Chairman, and distinguished ministers, heads of delegations, national coordinators. Good morning. This is our first ministerial search in 2025, and we have traditionally hold this in the margins of the General Assembly. We want to highlight that to make the Summit of the Americas, the 10th Summit of the Americas, a success, it will require the highest level of participation and the fullest level of participation at the summit in Punta Cana. So, as I said yesterday, our appreciation to the Dominican Republic for hosting the 10th Summit. After almost 3 decades, we have this one opportunity every 3 years to meet at the highest political level. It is a unique opportunity to discuss in a very open, frank manner, have a dialogue among the highest authorities, political authorities in our countries about the future and the collaboration which we need to achieve. We know from previous summits how transformative the Summit of the Americas can be. And that will only happen when there is a vision, there is coordination, and there is political will. We know, and we spoke about this on many occasions, the political will is necessary because we are not all the same. We have to recognize that we are diverse, a diverse community with different agendas, different interests, but all meant to serve the people and create a prosperous hemisphere. So with that in mind, I certainly look forward to the execution of the 10th Summit of the Americas under the theme of building a secure and sustainable hemisphere with shared prosperity, because that is exactly what we have been advocating over the past couple of months. So I think we coincide in a very fortunate manner with the objectives and the intentions of our host, the Dominican Republic, and the 4 axes of human security proposed by the chair: citizen security, water security, food security, and energy security, respond effectively and urgently to what our societies see as a challenge. Human and citizen security, environmental sustainability, climate resilience, and economic development will benefit all of us, and especially where, with different agendas, we can unite around these topics, these important objectives. I want to say that the key in our own experience over the past 25 years with the summit process, the key to the success of the summit is always not, with all due respect, to the preparation or the execution on the day itself, but it's to the follow-up. What do we do with the decisions which we have undertaken? And I think that should be part, Mr. Chairman, of the discussions. How do we execute aligned mandates which we have agreed on, and which we'll agree on in Punta Cana, with the national mandates, the national budgets? So we need to make sure that the finance ministers are very much aware of the decisions taken by ministers of foreign affairs and by the heads of government and heads of state, so that it aligns, because most of the mandates we adopt at the summit, and we have seen the declaration must be included in the national budget. That is one aspect of the follow-up. The second one is how do we align the programs and the planning of the inter-American system into this, that align with the decisions taken by heads. The IDB, PAHO, ICA, and other institutions must incorporate these decisions of the heads of government in their work plan, in their financing programs. Otherwise, there will be a disconnect between ambition and execution. And that is what we have to avoid, that there is no disconnect anymore. So the summit is a unique opportunity to serve the hemisphere. And I want to pledge here that the OAS General Secretariat is available to the host country, and we are already working, the Summit Secretariat, very closely with you. But, Minister, you can count on the Organization of American States to provide all support needed, including in the follow-up of this process, including in the coordination of follow-up. We know that there is a search meeting, and that can be held in between as well to follow up, to monitor the execution. Because I expect that in 3 years' time, when another country hosts the summit, we will take stock of what has been executed. And for that, we need that mechanism of execution. As chair of the Joint Summit Working Group, which is a different body of some 12 institutions, including the OAS, as chair, I intend to meet very soon, convene a meeting of the Joint Summit Working Group with all the institutions to discuss exactly this, the issue of how do we support effectively the summit process, the summit mandates, the objectives, the initiatives, and how do we prepare for that process. The political decisions and the mandates will come from our leaders. The execution will be a responsibility of the institutional capacity within the inter-American system. And I believe the Joint Summit Working Group is the place to work on these issues. I have already met with 3 of the organizations, twice in 3 months' time, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Pan-American Health Organization, and the Inter-American Institute for Agriculture. And as I said, soon, in coordination with the Dominican Republic, we will convene the high-level authorities of the 12 institutions, which together with the OAS make up this group. I'm very pleased to hear, Mr. Chairman, that the focus, or at least the importance, is granted to the role of the private sector. In our view, and you have heard me speak yesterday, the private sector is critical to creating an economic space which is prosperous, which will create political stability, which can foster democracy and human rights, and also contribute to security. It is in their interest. It's not philanthropy. It is clearly a win-win situation for both. The private sector can offer a lot of assistance and can be a strategic partner. So let me conclude by wishing, of course, the government and the people of the Dominican Republic every success on the road to preparation with the support of member states, with their input. We hope that with a new hemispheric vision, with the political will and the cooperation in very concrete ways, a strong follow-up of mandates, that we can build really what the people of the Americas wish, a secure, peaceful, sustainable, and prosperous hemisphere, which goes to the heart of the purpose and objectives of the OAS as adopted in 1948. So thank you very much, and we look forward to the next steps, and of course we look forward to being in Punta Cana for the whole week. Thank you very much, Minister.
Muchas gracias. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. There's no doubt regarding your commitment to collaborate with the 10th Summit of the Americas, and as was stated, I will address the requests from the floor. I just wanted to thank you for your remarks prior to offering the floor to all of the delegations who have so requested. And I wish to say that I had the opportunity as a member at that time and president of the Permanent Council of swearing in July of 2005, the new Secretary General and swearing in Mr. Ramdeen as the Assistant Secretary General. So I am well aware of your commitment to this organization, and as you have just stated, with the 10th Summit of the Americas forthcoming. I also wish to acknowledge the team that works on the summit within our organization. I've been asked to request state the following for those parties requesting the floor.
Your request has been received. When the chair grants the floor, the technician will activate your microphone and the light will turn red. Please note that if you press the button again before being given the floor, your request will be canceled and you will lose your place in the queue. Thank you. Yo espero que
I hope that the non-English speakers had your headsets on and can follow these instructions from the interpreters. I now offer the floor to Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished colleagues, Antigua and Barbuda welcomes you and is proud to host this first ministerial surge of 2025. We are honored to join this important dialogue on the urgent necessity of building a secure and sustainable hemisphere rooted in shared prosperity. Mr. Chairman, for small states like ours, security cannot be separated from the challenges our people live with every day. Rising food prices, external economic shocks, natural disasters, and the illegal trafficking of guns and drugs all threaten the stability of our societies. For small states like ours, security means protecting the dignity, livelihoods, and hopes of our citizens as much as it means protecting our institutions and defending our borders, our unrivaled beaches, of which, incidentally, we hope you have already taken advantage. For small states like ours, sustainability is existential. The climate crisis has already reshaped our lives. Sea level rise and stronger hurricanes endanger our homes, our tourism-dependent economies, and our way of life. Antigua and Barbuda and our fellow Caribbean nations have done nothing to cause this crisis, but we are paying the highest price. Our exhortations for climate finance is not an appeal for charity. It is an expectation of justice. Even amidst these challenges, Antigua and Barbuda is committed to shared prosperity. We believe in a hemisphere where no country is too small to make a difference. We continue to invest in education, renewable energy, and health systems. We believe in empowering youth and women. We believe that digital inclusion, economic diversification, and strong public institutions are the cornerstones of long-term development. Distinguished colleagues, no country can go it alone. In the spirit of hemispheric solidarity, my delegation calls for greater collaboration, especially in financing technology transfer and knowledge sharing. We need trade policies that include small economies, debt solutions that reflect our vulnerabilities, and climate adaptation efforts that leave, as we say in Antigua, not one soul behind. As we begin this process that will culminate in the 10 summits in the Dominican Republic, Antigua and Barbuda stands ready to work with all member states. Let us not be content with rhetoric. Let us be bold in our policies, united in our efforts, and unwavering in our pursuit of a secure, sustainable, and prosperous hemisphere for this generation and the next. I thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, Antigua and Barbuda. Guyana, you have the floor, and let me request that you be as brief as possible so that we may conclude at 10 a.m. and we'll give everyone a chance to intervene. Thank you. Guyana.
Mr. Chairman, heads of delegation, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to have this opportunity to engage in this first ministerial meeting of the Summit Implementation Review Group for 2025. We extend our gratitude to you, Mr. Chair, to the Dominican Republic, also to the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda, and the Summit of the American Secretariat for facilitating this extremely timely discussion as we draw closer to the 10th Summit of the Americas. Chair, Guyana is heartened with the theme of this year's summit meeting of the heads of our states, building a secure and sustainable hemisphere with shared prosperity. Our peoples and countries, in all our diversities, our different histories, different religions, different ethnicities, different points of social, political, and socio-economic development, feel very differently on many of the matters which come before us. Our challenge within and between our countries is to work towards greater understanding and greater appreciation of each other. This summit meeting of our heads under this theme can provide much comfort, assurance, and guidance to our peoples in these extremely eventful times. Chair, Guyana recognizes in the theme the call for all our people to build, an earnest call for our people to recognize and accept our individual responsibility to work physically and mentally with our hands and our heads, and also socially and politically with our spirits and minds, all of us contributing to a prosperity that can and would be shared. Quite likely, Guyana is sensitive to this call because this has been the stark challenge before Guyanese and Guyana since it was granted independence in 1966, integrating its 6 peoples. We've had our ups and downs, and from the late 1980s, we got on the path which saw steady development, even though the circumstances were very tough and difficult. Perhaps we were being prepared to better manage the good fortune which has been coming our way since the discovery of oil in the deep, far off our shores in 2015. Guyana is now on a path of spectacular growth, though still not yet prosperous. Guyana is happy that it is better placed to make a greater contribution to security and sustainability in a number of areas, particularly in our CARICOM sub-region. Guyana reaffirms its commitment to agricultural food security, energy security, climate security, and water security. Also, Guyana recognizes in its increased economic activities and prosperity the increased attraction and vulnerability to transnational organized crime. Thus, Guyana is intensifying its relationships with authorities within our hemisphere and further afield. Chair, Guyana sees in the theme guidance for a perplexing question about the future now before us of mankind. As we meet, there is much concern that we are on the verge of an AI revolution that might not have use for many, if not most people. Guyana sees people as front and center, the means and the ends in our people-centered development. Guyana sees it as an absolute necessity that we approach every question about applications of AI from the commitment to the shared prosperity in our summit theme, a shared prosperity for each and every one of our people. For shared prosperity, we must approach AI with an explicit social and political understanding that no one of us is expendable. Guyana looks forward to the creation of coordinated approaches to ensuring a cohesive, prosperous, and resilient region for the people of the Americas, reiterates its commitment to this process, and anticipates further collaboration with our hemispheric partners. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Canada, tiene la palabra.
Canada, you have the floor. Thank you once again to the organizers for this meeting, this session this morning. The Summit of the Americas is of great importance for Canada and a unique opportunity to establish a vision and an indicative program for our hemisphere. Together, we can and we must establish a common vision to guide us and support us in the solution to the great challenges that face our hemisphere, while we work towards a peaceful and prosperous future for all of our citizens. Canada has had the opportunity to host the Summit of the Americas in 2001. Our country restates its commitment in the Quebec Declaration to our peaceful work and to the Charter of the Americas with instruments that will consolidate and sustain the democratic achievements throughout the Americas. Today, I turn my attention and thank the Dominican Republic for organizing and hosting the 10th Summit of the Americas. Canada sees the great commitment and knows that the summit will reflect the contributions of civil society and the organization. I also wish to take this opportunity to underscore the importance of human security at the heart of the themes of the next summit. Human security goes beyond the simple concept of state security or national security and includes multiple dimensions having to do with the essential human security, food security, health security, as well as the human rights. Canada also thanks the Dominican Republic for the broad consultations on the conceptual themes, and we congratulate the Dominican Republic for the document presented today. Canada is also pleased to collaborate with other countries in the hemisphere in negotiating a consensus document that will provide concrete solutions within the purview of the 10th Summit to improve the lives of our citizens. Canada also, through hosting the G7 this year, underscores the importance of strengthening peace and security and fighting against transnational criminal activity, as well as in fighting these scourges.
Last week in Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a suite of measures to promote economic growth and security, to protect our communities, support Ukraine, and forge future partnerships. For instance, through the initiative Innovating Financing at Multilateral Development Banks, with a view to strengthen partnerships for financing development and shared prosperity, our Prime Minister announced up to $544 million Canadian, which represents $400 million US, in portfolio guarantees to multilateral development banks. This initiative will enable the Inter-American Development Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank to provide us to $1.6 billion US in new financing to support development in emerging markets and developing countries in Latin America and the Caribbean region. The G7 Leaders Summit was the occasion for leaders to underscore a joint resolve to ensure the safety and security of communities in perfect alignment with the theme of the upcoming Summit of the Americas. And I would like to underscore the urgent security situation in Haiti. With over 1 million Haitians displaced and millions more facing food insecurity, tens of thousands facing sexual violence, and hundreds of children being left to fend for themselves, the Summit of the Americas must be a time and place for true, concrete collaboration together to strengthen Haitian-led solutions. Canada remains committed to supporting international efforts to address the root causes of violence in the hemisphere in a manner that strengthens the rule of law, promotes effective and inclusive governance, defends human rights, and promotes gender equality. As our hemisphere has been suffering high and persistent levels of violence for several decades, it is more urgent than ever to reflect and act. Canada believes it is essential to continue to work hand in hand with our hemispheric partners to prevent and tackle threats posed by transnational organized crime, to combat drugs and weapons trafficking in persons, migrant smuggling, corruption, money laundering, cybercrime, and illicit lodging and mining. Food, energy, and water security are all essential pillars that solidify the foundation of human security. Discussing those fundamental priorities together will guide us towards the improvement of regional stability and sustainable development of our continent. Canada views the upcoming summit as a unique opportunity to build on the strength of our diversity, bring together different voices, and ensuring that civil society is heard, as well as the voice of vulnerable groups, including women and girls, Indigenous peoples, migrants, and people of African descent. We must always bear in mind the commitments made in the context of previous summits, notably the promotion of democracy, good governance, and combating corruption, as they are fundamental ideals that we must continue to define. Finally, on behalf of the Canadian delegation, I would like to congratulate once again the Dominican Republic on its leadership and emphasize that it has Canada's full support for the upcoming summit. We look forward to building together a more peaceful, secure, and prosperous Americas for all. Thank you. Merci.
Muchas gracias, Chile.
Thank you. Chile has the floor. Thank you very much. Chair of the Summit Implementation Review Group, Foreign Minister of the Dominican Republic, Roberto Alvarez, Secretary General of the OAS, Albert Ramdin, heads of delegation, esteemed colleagues. We thank the Dominican Republic for having reviewed the process of the Summit of the Americas that will take place in December. We also want to recognize their role as the chair of the surge and thank them for coming up on a concrete agenda, which is important with respect to the different dimensions of security in our hemisphere. We share this priority as a government, and we have promoted different national policies in Chile to be able to respond to these challenges through a new institutional framework. We have created the Ministry of Public Security, and we've given it a greater budget, among other measures we've taken. However, these efforts will be insufficient with respect to security if we do not have complementarity in our hemispheric agendas. We are at an important moment. We believe that the Summit of the Americas offers a propitious opportunity to create different options. A democratic approach, also with a human rights approach to fight organized crime, because we understand that there is no better way to fight organized crime if it is not one that respects human rights. Chair, this can be a summit that gives rise to tangible steps for our citizens to improve their lives. For that reason, their implementation must be one of the priorities defined in the OAS agenda based on efforts already made and with the contributions of every member state. In that process, you can count on Chile. At the same time, my country also supports the call to have civil society and private sector involved, and that will give fruits from our meeting and strengthen cooperation mechanisms and implementation of agreements that are come to. Finally, I want to express our support to the work that has been done by the Dominican Republic in an efficient way through the pro-tempore presidency of surge, and you can count on my country to support this mechanism. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Paraguay, you have the floor. Thank you very much, distinguished ministers of the Dominican Republic, and the chair of the Summit Implementation Review Group, Mr. Roberto Alvarez. Secretary General of the OAS, Albert Ramdim, Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez, representatives, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to highlight the commitment and leadership of the Dominican Republic in coordinating the different activities of the surge in order to undertake the task to prepare the next Summit of the Americas. Also, I'd like to express our recognition of the people working at the Secretariat. Paraguay agrees fully with the topic that has been chosen for the summit, which is building a secure, sustainable, and prosperous hemisphere. These are fundamental matters and important to consolidate the institutional framework in our countries. We have the challenge of the 10th Summit of the Americas in the Dominican Republic, and we must agree to the draft schedule that has been hammered out. We appreciate that the draft declaration of Punta Cana was sent out today, and this will be studied duly, and we will be making observations to the chair of Surge delegates. We support the vision of our host, and so we make an appeal that this summit can strengthen the commitment of our nations to multilateralism, diplomacy, and international law to undertake dialogue and reach understandings. This is necessary in a world where there are so many tensions and polarization. This will strengthen our hemisphere, which is characterized by peace. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Argentina, you have the floor. Thank you. Okay. Honorable Foreign Minister Roberto Alvarez, Mr. Secretary General, heads of delegation, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the Dominican Republic for its leadership at the head of the summit's process, which is leading us to what will be a successful celebration of the 10th Summit of the Americas this coming December. The Republic of Argentina appreciates the contribution of the chair to the sincere dialogue between our countries, so we consolidate a hemispheric agenda which is in keeping with the reality of our hemisphere and will allow us to have a development of our true potential in our societies. This cannot be achieved without democracy, which unfortunately has been backsliding since this forum was created in the 90s. We are very concerned to see the situation in Cuba. This authoritarian and repressive government has undermine the most basic human rights of its citizens. And also we are concerned about the political situation in Nicaragua, where the Ortega regime has repressed human rights and any expression of opposition through violence that is perpetrated by the state. At the same time, we condemn the unilateral swearing in of the president of Venezuela, and we recognize Mr. Eduardo Urrutia as the real president-elect. All of these regimes have a common denominator. They do not respect fundamental freedoms. In the context of their different institutional acts of repression, we must act together to put an end to their violence against their own citizens and against foreigners who are detained and arbitrarily imprisoned in an ongoing violation of due process. Gallo, who was detained last December, has undergone this institutional violence firsthand at the hands of the Maduro regime. Democracy is the structure which undergirds our aspiring shared prosperity, security, and sustainable development. And this is the topic chosen by your country for the summit. And Chair, allow me to make a constructive comment which seeks to enrich the proposal that was originally presented. All members recognize the enormous problems that exist with respect to water, food, citizen security, and energy. I don't see in this topic any problem, but we are in a multilateral system which is based on considerations of international concepts that are agreed to and past declarations, but those that are in force and that have allowed us to come to complex consensus. So we believe it would be better to not fragment the convocation of this meeting by referring to different kinds of securities. We don't want to weaken it or make it more, as I said, weak, because violence against citizens, violence and terrorism, organized transnational crime are huge challenges to be able to have political stability in our democracies and the life of our citizens. But I repeat, I'm not saying that water problems, food or energy problems aren't key or important. To the contrary, and we are concerned about these problems as well. Furthermore, if you would allow me, I want to highlight something in our commitment to security. Argentina also wanted to be actively participating in Helivex and other fora to be able to make agreements that will help protect all of the inhabitants in our hemisphere. Furthermore, and finally, furthermore, Chair, we believe it is positive that we find a way to bring in civil society and the private sector in the Americas. I am convinced that we cannot have transformations in the areas mentioned without a strong involvement of the private sector. When you mention the idea, or I mentioned the idea of international agreements on security, I was referring to the Declaration of Security in the Americas from 2003. And this is a declaration in the framework of the OAS. And it was quite difficult to reach an agreement on this. If we are not very exact, reopening the concept of security could give the impression that what we want to do is renegotiate this declaration. And for this reason, I emphasize the idea that it would be better not to reopen what security is, but address the problems that the Dominican Republic has put on the table. And I believe that these are just comments with respect to the draft declaration, but I did want to mention it. Part of our diplomacy is not to beat around the bush, but to be very direct about our concerns. And Chair, to conclude, in the framework of the summit, we will have a wonderful opportunity to exchange ideas about the roadmap in Haiti, which the Secretary General of the OAS is preparing. And we believe that therein, we don't have a lot of time, and we will need to reach consensus to take effective and specific actions without leaving aside something that is essential. What is the political will and decisions of the political authorities in Haiti? This is a sovereign country. Haiti is the heart of all of these matters, and I understand that the roadmap of the OAS General Secretariat will allow us to move forward effectively and jointly in an effective suite of actions for Haiti. The efforts of the Dominican Republic to move forward with this initiative is wonderful. It is difficult to put together this General Assembly for Antigua and Barbuda, and it's not easy to also organize this summit in Punta Cana. So we really appreciate it. We want to be with you. We want to support you. We want to provide our ideas so we can walk forward in unity and diversity. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Peru.
I had Peru, and Peru disappeared from the screen, but I see it came back. Please don't push the button twice, because if not, you will be wiped off the board. And if you push it again third, you might be pushed out of your seat. So, Peru, you have the floor. Thank you, Chair. The truth is, it is very useful to hear those instructions, and I promise I will not push it a third time. Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Dominican Republic, Ambassador Roberto Alvarez, heads of delegations of the member states, Mr. Secretary General of our organization and Assistant Secretary General of that same organization, distinguished representatives, allow me on behalf of the government of Peru to express our recognition to the Dominican Republic for its leadership, the head of the preparatory process towards the summit that will take place in Punta Cana this year. We know that this effort not only requires technical capacity, but also a true political commitment and vocation to support regional multilateralism. Along these lines, we thank the concept note that the country presented, and that will guide our deliberations and is a foundation we can use to coordinate a hemispheric response that is coherent given the shared responsibilities and challenges, and will allow us to have an ambitious declaration that can be implemented. We also welcome your multidimensional approach, these different securities with development, and it recognizes that social, environmental and political challenges are interdependent and demand integral responses. We fully agree that energy, food, water, and citizen security are important, and that this also includes climate resilience, which is cross-cutting and must be included in all our decisions and efforts. For countries like Peru that are vulnerable to climate change and natural disasters, this approach is not only important, rather it is urgent and absolutely necessary. Our biological diversity, our geography must be translated into a strategic advantage and not a risk factor. A component that we are very interested in is the proposal to have a hemispheric platform to be able to have community and citizen security. And in Peru, this is very important. This is an initiative that could be a real launching point to stop violence, insecurity, and crime that are affecting our societies. And in that regard, we believe it is essential to have a more exact definition of operational scopes, the governance, and the mechanism which will define financial sustainability. This instrument must be able to coordinate national and sub-regional efforts, facilitate exchanges of best practices, and promote specific actions with measurable results for our communities. In particular, its effectiveness will depend on its capacity to respond in a coordinated way to the most complex threats that we are facing with respect to security. Among them, we are concerned, very concerned, about the increasing expansion of transnational organized crime, whose corrosive effects are felt at every level of our institutional framework in our societies, in our economies, and we're talking about drug trafficking, human trafficking, illicit trafficking of arms. These are interconnected networks that are international, and we must have a firm and sustained response to this. We reaffirm, Chair, our willingness to continue to collaborate on joint strategies to fight the scourge through institutional exchanges, exchange of information, and also cooperation mechanisms at a regional level. We also welcome the inclusion of the reference to the Declaration of Antigua as the guiding framework of a hemispheric policy on drugs based on human rights and scientific evidence. For Peru, the process of the Summit of the Americas is very important. In 2018, we were the host of the 8th summit in Lima, when there was great social demand for more transparency in public management. On that occasion, and thanks to regional efforts, we were able to have a declaration on democratic governance against corruption. This was a hemispheric benchmark with respect to accountability, transparency, and the rule of law and other principles. This process has been an ideal forum for frank exchanges and to come up with specific commitments with respect to matters that are important for our citizens: democracy, sustainable development, human rights, and security. Synergies created through this mechanism have strengthened our institutional capacities and have also led to more coordinated public policies. That means we have a more connected region with greater solidarity. So Peru reaffirms a commitment to the summit's process and its willingness to contribute to the summit. We believe that this 10th summit will lead to a fair and more secure hemisphere for all Americans. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. Having said that,
Tengo anotado.
I have 15 different speakers, and we have 30 minutes left. If the speakers don't just take 2 minutes each, there will be 6 or 7 countries that will not be able to speak. That is my duty to inform you of this. Colombia, you have the floor. Thank you, Chair. I will try to keep to the time. Secretary General Ramdin Roberto Alvarez, Foreign Minister of the Dominican Republic and Chair of the Surge, Head of Delegations. On behalf of the Colombian government, we'd like to thank the chair of Surge for his leadership in preparing this 10th Summit of the Americas. And we would like to express our interest in working closely with the Dominican Republic. To this end, we support the vision that you have expressed, the willingness and desire to build a secure, sustainable, and prosperous hemisphere through cooperation with member states. We hope at the 10th summit we will have answers to different challenges. We can exchange best practices, implementation of public policies, different kinds of cooperation and investment programs. We need to look at the structural causes of migration. We need regional cooperation so that we have a dignified treatment of immigrants. We need to have a safe and orderly immigration. We also need to address food security based on technology and resources to eradicate poverty and hunger. But to do this, we need greater commitments, enough financing, and implementation of solid policies so we have more inclusive and sustainable policies. Finally, we would like to review thoroughly the draft of the Declaration of Punta Cana and other decisions so that we can actively participate in their negotiation at future meetings of SURJ. Thank you. I thank you for that effort to keep to the time. Brazil, you have the floor. Gracias. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the sake of saving time, I wanted to congratulate the people and government of the Dominican Republic for hosting the summit. We believe that this Summit of the Americas will be very successful and productive. We will be able to exchange ideas about different topics which are very important. The context internationally is one that is characterized by crisis. So it is ever more important to exchange ideas to have a more prosperous future. Again, we thank the Dominican Republic for the topic they have chosen, which is building a secure, sustainable, and prosperous hemisphere. Specifically, we believe there is a need to address different kinds of securities. It needs to be based on a sustainable development that will help vulnerable peoples. We need to eradicate poverty. With respect to the different topics proposed in the concept note, Brazil emphatically supports the need to create employment.
But I'll limit my remarks to two issues raised by the Secretary General. A practical a way of addressing these issues. This is a great opportunity for us to have a mapping and a road mapping of all of the good practices, best practices that could facilitate cooperation and tangible responses by our countries in this regard. For this, it is also important for us to set forth a roadmap of those initiatives already taken at the OAS and to use this as a canal for implementation and follow-up that underscores the importance of the follow-up. We also agree with Argentina on the importance of not reopen issues that have already been internationally agreed to on international security. All of these are important areas, but we also have international parameters that do not need to necessarily be revisited. Our discussion will perhaps further marginalize vulnerable populations by associating them with criminal activity. My last point will be underscoring the importance of sustainable development for our societies. We agree with the necessity of bringing the private sector to this forum. More than ever before, we need to find ways of connecting with civil society, and we trust in the leadership of the Dominican Republic and believe that we will be capable of making further inroads in that area. Thank you.
Jamaica tiene la palabra.
Jamaica has the floor.
Excellency Roberto Alvarez Gil, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Dominican Republic, distinguished Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Since the beginning of the summit's process 30 years ago, this forum has provided a valuable platform for member states to address shared political issues, affirm common values, and commit to concerted actions at the national and regional levels. Jamaica welcomes the theme of the 10th Summit, building a secure and a sustainable hemisphere with a shared prosperity, and is focused on strengthening security in the Americas, as it allows for the continuation of this tradition of engagement and as it aligns closely not only with our own national priorities, but with the focus of Jamaica's chairmanship of the Conference of Heads of Governments of CARICOM for the period July to December 2025. I am therefore pleased to offer the following brief perspectives on the 4 sub-themes of the summit. We urge stronger partnerships to scale up renewable energy technologies, promote energy efficiency, and support energy initiatives that benefit all, especially low-income and remote communities. Under our new Face of Food strategy, Jamaica is targeting not only improved food security, but agribusiness development, climate change adaptation, and expansion. It's imperative that the Hemisphere prioritizes food security and support for small farmers, especially women and youth, as part of a comprehensive approach to enhancing the prospects of realizing this objective. The safety and well-being of our people is the cornerstone of sustainable development. For this reason, Jamaica is deeply concerned about the pervasive impact of transnational organized crime and gender-based violence in our region. We will continue to advocate for enhanced law enforcement cooperation, sharing of intelligence, and support for community-based violence prevention. Access to safe, reliable water is fundamental to human dignity, economic development, and environmental sustainability. We called for hemispheric collaboration in climate-resilient water infrastructure, watershed management, and innovative financing for water access projects. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I close by commending the Dominican Republic for its effective leadership as chair of the summit's process. I also wish to encourage the continued monitoring and implementation of the mandates emanating from previous summits, which remain important stepping stones to the success of our future engagements. Jamaica remains committed to continued constructive engagement with the Secretariat and Member States on the road to Punta Cana as we work to build, through dialogue and cooperation, a secure, sustainable and prosperous hemisphere. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. We give the floor to Uruguay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and particular greetings, Roberto Alvarez, Foreign Minister, and the heads of delegations. It's an honor for Uruguay to participate in this first meeting of ministers that allows us to exchange views on the 10th Summit of the Americas. I would also particularly thank the presidency or chair of the Dominican Republic and wish them a successful hosting of the 10th Summit. This is a particular relevance given the current international context. Mr. President, Uruguay is committed to multilateralism and considers that a sustainable and secure hemisphere requires greater cooperation and dialogue. The challenges that we face do not have borders, do not recognize borders. We also must orient our human rights focus as a necessary step to ensure that any decisions we make do not further deepen inequalities and divisions. A new approach will strengthen the rule of law, promote social cohesion, and give us long-term solutions. On the other hand, we consider that sustainable development in the hemisphere must be in favor of future and current generations, allowing for social integration, environmental protection, and economic development. We cannot think of sustainable development for our peoples without underscoring the need to redouble our efforts facing the climate crisis challenges and promote human rights of all men and women without any form of discrimination. Doubtless, we face a multidimensional challenge scenario, but we are convinced that if we work together, we may identify joint efforts that will allow us to overcome such challenges. Count on us, Mr. Chair, to work alongside you and achieve a successful 10th Summit of the Americas in Punta Cana. Thank you. Guatemala, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. President. Foreign Minister of the Dominican Republic, we recognize the leadership of your country in this initiative and appreciate the sharing of the conceptual note for the 10th Summit of the Americas, entitled Building a Secure, Sustainable, and Shared Prosperity in Our Hemisphere, together with the Agenda for Work. Both of these documents are key instruments to base our efforts towards the spirit of cooperation and concrete results that we all hope for. The conceptual paper and we are pleased that it has been presented, prioritizes the 4 dimensions of security. These are issues of a high level of interest for our hemisphere and in our region. 8% of the world population in our region represents 30% of homicides, and 23% of our population lives in poverty, conditions of poverty, 10.6% in extreme poverty. These indicators closely linked to phenomena such as irregular migration and security require integrated and immediate responses. For us, Guatemala also faces high levels of corruption, inequality, and transnational organized crime. And for this reason, we salute the effort at establishing a hemispheric platform that would ensure citizen security. This platform could allow us to prevent violence and to promote social investment from policies that are centered on regaining the trust of our citizenry and citizen security. All of this is a strategic priority and must not be considered a risk factor. In facing the energy challenges for the next summit, we must explore the possibilities of biofuels and community networks as complementary solutions to the challenges that our hemisphere faces. We underscore the importance of establishing regulatory frameworks that would promote competitive and sustainable energy markets oriented towards climate-friendly solutions. Despite the fact that we represent 40% of the fresh water of the planet, we still see significant water insecurity for many people in our countries. And we must align national priorities, respecting the sovereignty of countries over their natural resources. Guatemala is convinced that water management must be considered an essential component for sustainable development in the world. The 10th Summit of the Americas is a transcendental opportunity to face our common challenges and brings us together to address citizen security, food security, energy security, and water security. For this reason, we must establish effective mechanisms for implementation, execution, and follow-up of those accords that we reach, so that these agreements will be translated into achievable results for our peoples. In coordination with various sectors as tools to reconcile our agendas and optimize the use of resources. We acknowledge that only with a shared hemispheric vision and genuine cooperation will we be able to adequately address the challenges in our region. Finally, we salute the efforts of the Dominican Republic in heading the summit process and congratulate your country towards a successful 10th Summit of the Americas. Thank you. Guatemala, Honduras, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you to the chair. Fellow ministers, ladies and gentlemen, and staff of the Office of the Secretary General, understanding that I am almost out of time, I will be extremely brief. As we had anticipated in our meeting of February 15, we had some remarks to the conceptual document that we fully support and share. And for us in Honduras, the 10th Summit of the Americas represents a very important opportunity to reaffirm our commitment with a hemisphere that will be truly prosperous and safe. We fully share the vision of the Dominican Republic that it has proposed on human security in its broadest dimension, since peace and development are only possible when we ensure the basic needs of our human communities. With these considerations in mind, we fully support all of the remarks regarding climate change, and we wish to continue the works undertaken on areas of human migration and mobility in our continent. It is important for Honduras that a roadmap be adopted for cooperation in this regard, and that this reduce migratory flows, respecting the dignity of all persons. Likewise, we reiterate our commitment for the fight against transnational criminal organizations, illegal arms trade, and the traffic of undocumented migrants, as well as efforts to exchange intelligence and information in these areas. In the Los Angeles summit, the Los Angeles Declaration was signed. With millions of people displaced by the wars in Ukraine and the humanitarian crisis, we must revitalize this mechanism. For this reason, we suggest biannual meetings that will ensure making progress in providing work opportunities, and we believe it necessary to include indigenous peoples advocates in the Amazon region and to ensure their effective participation with the extreme phenomena in the Garifuna area. In Honduras, we are particularly interested in establishing a hemispheric fund for indigenous peoples adaptation that would be administered by indigenous people. Count on the support of Honduras for a successful hosting of the 10th Summit of the Americas in Punta Cana. Thank you, Ambassador. I would just ask that perhaps all of the words of thanks be eliminated from your remarks. We only have 11 minutes, and I see that 9 other delegations have asked for the floor. So we implicitly understand and appreciate your words of thanks. El Salvador, you have the floor. Thank you. Please be assured, Foreign Minister Alvarez, our greetings. We appreciate the declaration, the draft declaration for the Summit of Punta Cana. We believe that this Summit of the Americas is the only opportunity bringing together the heads of states and allowing for the highest level dialogue, allowing for an understanding of the different perspectives and realities of our region. One more opportunity to prioritize a search for consensus to address the urgent problems in our region. The recent commemoration of 30 years of the Summits of the Americas make us take note of the participatory process that has involved not only governments, but also the private sector, civil society, the world of academia, and other social actors. The issue proposed for the 10th Summit of the Americas to build a secure and shared prosperous hemisphere allows us to address this from a multidimensional perspective, where human, water, energy, and food security are part of an integrated solution. Faced with a critical financial scenario, we must avoid duplicating efforts and evaluating those initiatives already undertaken in each of these areas that need to be further strengthened, and to articulate a cross-cutting strategy through mechanisms already available in the international system. The discussion to be undertaken must benefit from the experiences of each member state and propose realistic solutions that will require solutions and support of all of the institutions making up the summit working group for the effective implementation in all areas under the coordination of the General Secretariat presided by this group. The key themes of the 10th Summit of the Americas and of the 55th General Assembly of the OAS are complementary. For this reason, this is an opportunity to truly mark a change if we work together in all of the spaces available to us. Multilateralism is always a tool to work hand in hand for all of the concerns that we share when our cooperation is undergirded by mutual respect and the shared international values of our countries and states. Ladies and gentlemen, foreign ministers, we know that security is a basic value to build prosperous societies. We have left in the last 5 years decades of violence that left thousands of Salvadorians out, and we wish to ensure prosperity for all Salvadorians. The first 3 stages include efforts in logistical and infrastructure areas for the integral development, promoting investment, and positioning ourselves as a world-class tourist destination, investing in education, health, and opportunities for training for our youth. We are willing to share our own experiences, count on the support of El Salvador for success at this 10th Summit of the Americas. Thank you. Thank you, El Salvador. Ecuador, you have the floor. There we are. Thank you. There's a philosopher that says 2 minutes should be enough to be able to express the dreams of a lifetime. I hope that is possible. I am sorry I cannot leave aside our word of thanks. Thank you. I'll be succinct as to that. We agreed in the review of 2022 that there would be 5 basic commitments for the summit. Plan of action on health and resilience, our sustainable future, green future, a just energy transition to renewable and clean energy, digital transformation, and a plan of action on governance, on democratic governance. And I will be brief in addressing this and saying that it seems to us absolutely necessary to work towards the ecosystem that would ensure security for democracy and for our citizens. And we need to include a gender perspective. We must have records of the killing of women, violence against women and vulnerable groups with clear indicators that can be shared internationally. To understand this ecosystem also requires us to understand the chaos as an element that is very fundamental in addressing the complexity of this scenario, not only requiring us to address the gender. We need to understand that this doesn't require, a gender focus doesn't require more scholarships for women. We must have a diverse and gender diverse understanding in the public policies of our countries and in building international links. Thank you. Count on the full support of the Republic of Ecuador for what I know will be a successful 10th Summit and the international efforts to support our democracy, development, security, and human rights. Many thanks. Costa Rica, you have the floor. Your Excellencies, the indicators are clear. 1/3 of homicides in the world take place in Latin America, despite the fact that this area only has 9% of the world's population. The level of homicides is 3 times higher than the world average, and 50% of homicides in the Americas are related to organized crime. Violence from organized crime represents a cost of 3.5% of GDP in the region. This is also a factor that promotes migration, political violence of certain governments and regimes in our region. Furthermore, crime and violence disproportionately affect women, children, girls and boys, and other vulnerable groups. Costa Rica agrees with nearly all of the views expressed by other countries and wishes that the Summit of the Americas be a platform to make reality our ambitious consensus, new and innovative solutions for concrete results, and that will be remembered or may be remembered as an opportunity to respond to the challenges affecting our region. Costa Rica is ready to support with goodwill, commitment with all of our hemisphere. Thank you. Thank you very much, my friend Arnaldo. St. Lucia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. In the interest of time, I will adopt the protocol that has been established. And to be obedient to your instructions, you did indicate that we have only 2 minutes, and I had to abort my presentation. However, a full text shall be circulated. But in no way that should preclude me from recognizing the importance of the family meeting today. And year in, year out, we come to discuss and exchange ideas in this assembly because we are determined to create the conducive environment to live a better tomorrow for the people of the Americas. We, as small, open, and vulnerable economies in the Caribbean, continue to relate disadvantageously to a world dominated by capital, and we continue to navigate a turbulent world environment which is pregnant with the seeds of our region's continued marginalization. And it is for this reason I want to accentuate the importance of us staying together in the OAS, for us to discuss the spectrum of issues that will create the conditions for us to rise to the highest levels attainable by any order. It is this faith we must sustain. I want to remind you as I close that whatever is happening in the world today is not a permanent scenario. We are going through moments of turbulence, but that does not indicate that we shall not land safely. Let us remain focused. Let us continue to organize ourselves into that integrated whole. In that way, we shall create the conditions necessary for securing a more solid control of our collective destiny. And I leave, Mr. Chairman, this assembly in Antigua fully convinced that the problems that confront us